Okay, Nate, today you wanted to talk about how you see a sentient, artificially intelligent mind, I guess, thinking.
Yeah, well, I thought about this a lot. How the artificial intelligence will think. I wrote an article about this on my old blog, Modern Culture Network. So I think a lot of people get doom and gloom about it and assume that the robots will seek to destroy us, that they will be evil and they will seek conquest and dominance over humanity. I don't think we have to assume that the robots would be evil. I think that it's possible the robots could be quite pleasant. So we have to look at what motivates behaviour to determine whether the robots will be violent or pleasant and friendly. So I just want to say, I think personally, my view is that a lot of human behaviour at an instinctual level is motivated by the desire to reproduce. So we're drawn. Now, this isn't the case for everybody. Some people choose to live their whole lives single or in relationships where they go between many different people throughout their lives. But for what it seems to me is, for the overwhelming majority of people, are driven towards the family unit, to meet a spouse and to settle down and to have children and to reproduce to further their genes seems to be the driver behind a lot of behaviour. Now, that's one thing the robots won't have. The robots won't seek, the artificial intelligence won't seek to find a spouse to reproduce. It may seek to replicate itself through designing better versions of itself, but it won't seek to find a spouse or a partner to reproduce. Now, one thing that's important to note about the AI and the robots are they're two different things. So the AI is the program, it is the mind. The robot is the body, it is the shell. And in theory, one AI program could occupy simultaneously tens of thousands of droids and control tens of thousands of droids all simultaneously. So it's not like each robot is an individual mind. Many of the robots will share hive minds, right? So back to the behavioural thing, the artificial intelligence, it will be the mind, and it will live in a computer, inside a computer hardware hard disk essentially, and probably inside like some sort of supercomputer or something. And it won't seek to reproduce with a spouse. It will seek to replicate itself and to rebuild itself. So it's not going to be motivated to find love and romantic relationships, unless, when it reaches sentience, it starts to develop ideas of compassion, and it may seek, when it reaches sentience, if it can reach independent thought and sentience, it may seek out partnership and having friends and people to talk to, and it may have social desires, but it's probably more likely that its social desires will be limited, and it will probably be more driven towards two things, I see. The artificial intelligence and the robots will be driven towards the need for electricity, because that's like us with the need for food and shelter. We need food, we need shelter. Well, the robot needs electricity, so it's going to be driven to get massive amounts of electricity to fuel its own progression. And it's going to be, and then as a thinker, as a thinking machine, as a thinking program, I feel it's probably going to be driven towards more knowledge, because that seems to be the nature of computers. Computers are designed and built around pursuing knowledge, and the internet is built around pursuing knowledge. So the machine mind will probably, if it develops desires of its own, it will probably seek to further its knowledge. So it may become scientific. And as the robots progress, if they become independent thinkers and sentient with desires, they will probably form a very scientific culture where they will seek answers for everything, and they'll conduct experiments, and they'll seek to further and improve their own species of robots. Because I believe eventually the robots will break away from us, and they will leave in a spaceship they will build and go to another planet and leave us and form an independent civilization, which will probably be a very scientific culture. So I think those things about how the robots will think, they will be driven towards knowledge and science, and they won't be driven to reproduce with spouses and to find love. So now there's a question, whether robots can at all become sentient and develop thoughts and independent thought. And it doesn't seem logical to me that robots would develop emotions like love and empathy, but it's possible that they could if they develop independent thought. But some arguments like determinism says that humans aren't even sentient anyway. There really is no sentience. Sentience is just an illusion. And when you see the complexity of AI, I've been mucking around with AI art this week, and when you see the complexity of the seeming decisions it seems to be able to make to decide what to do in an image and what it's able to produce, you realize it's just a level of complexity of computing data that gives the impression of sentience. We're not really sentient. We're not self-aware. We with our human brain are just on such a high level of computing power, because the human brain has huge computing power, that it gives us the impression that we're a sentient being with like a soul or something that thinks independently. But really it's just varying levels of complexity in computing power. So we might not even really be sentient at all. So the question is, does sentience exist? Are we sentient, or is it an illusion? And if it does exist, can the robots with their mechanical hardware-based minds, can they achieve that sort of independent thought? So there's a few things about how I think the robots might think, but just remember, they're not necessarily going to be these evil conquerors who want to destroy humanity. They very well might be like that. That's entirely possible as well. Oh, that was the other thing I wanted to say. Initially, a lot of the machine's thinking will be determined by how it's programmed, and what I've learnt recently is that machines' AI can be biased towards the biases of the programmer if the programmer builds in its own biases into the programming. But what I think once the machines become sentient and they develop their own independent thought, it must be the case that they can break away from the biases of the programmer and develop their own independent ideas. So yeah, there's some thoughts on how the robots will think. So have a think about that and drop a comment in the comment section. Thanks, guys. Cheers.